On March 26, 1945, the island of Iwo Jima was declared secure by the U.S. Marines. On that very same day, the U.S. Army 77th Infantry Division landed on the Kurama Islands, an archipelago 30 to 40 kilometers off the southwest coast of the island of Okinawa. The capture of these islands was only the first step in preparation for a greater operation. April 1st, 1945, was the designated day of the American invasion of Okinawa. Covered by naval gunfire, the 10th Army, consisting of the 7th, 27th, 77th, and 96th Army Infantry Divisions, making up the 24th Army Corps, and the 1st, 2nd, and 6th Marine Divisions, making up the 3rd Amphibious Corps, went ashore. Somewhat surprisingly, the landings were virtually unopposed, and within mere hours of the landings, the Yonten Airfield and Kadena Air Base had been captured. All according to the Japanese plan, of course. Because of the ease of the landings, the 10th Army was ordered to push on, and on April 4th, the Marine Divisions trekked north, while the Army Divisions headed south. Like the landing area, the north of the island wasn't too heavily fortified. The Marines plowed through every obstacle, moving swiftly along the coast and rooting out the enemy hidden within the highly vegetated interior. By April 7th, they had secured the town of Nago and the surrounding area, sealing off the Motobu Peninsula, and by April 13th, the Marines had reached Hito Misaki, aka Hito Point, at the northernmost tip of the island. On April 14th, Marine battalions under the command of Colonel Alan Shapley began an attack on Japanese positions in the mountainous region of Yaitake on the Motobu Peninsula. As the Marines advanced on the Japanese positions, the Japanese, under the command of Colonel Takeshiko Udo, pounded the Marines with artillery fire, trying to prevent encirclement. Nonetheless, supported by naval gunfire from the battleship USS Tennessee, bombing runs by F-4U Corsairs, and artillery and mortar fire, the Marines prevailed in their attack, and on April 20th, General Lemuel C. Shepard, Jr. declared the Motobu Peninsula secured. At the same time, on April 16th, the U.S. Army 77th Infantry Division again showcased its amphibious prowess in an attack on Aishima, an island just off the coast of the Motobu Peninsula. By the 21st, the 77th Division had obtained the airfield and declared the island secured. All of northern Okinawa had now been secured by the Marines. While the 6th Marine Division and the 77th Infantry Division cleared the northern portion of Okinawa, the 7th and 96th Infantry Divisions were struggling their way south. Unlike the north, the southern portion of Okinawa had been tactically and heavily fortified by Japanese General Mitsuru Ushijima. In addition to hidden machine gun emplacements, concealed snipers, protected artillery pieces, mortars, minefields, and the caves in which the Japanese hid to defend themselves against American bombardment, General Ushijima took advantage of the hilly topography of the land, in a tactic known as the reverse slope defense. In this tactic, the defending force is positioned on the slope of a hill, opposite to the attacking force. This strategy is effective because it takes away the attacker's advantage of seeing the defender's location, and if the attackers try to go over the hill, they will end up in the defender's line of fire, preferably in a surprise attack. On April 4th, the very day that the Army started its hike south, the 7th and 96th Infantry Divisions came across the first line of southern defenses, a series of fearsome outposts that were established on just about every hill in the area. Each outpost utilized the reverse slope defense tactic to great effect, and the 10th Army suffered severe casualties as a result. Still, slowly, the Army was able to push its way south, defeating the Japanese at positions such as Cactus Ridge, Kakuzu Ridge, Tombstone Ridge, Skyline Ridge, and Nishibara Ridge. By the end of April, all the outposts had been subdued, and the 10th Army, its divisions having regrouped in the south, prepared to attack the Japanese main forces in the area known as Shuri. On May 4th, the Japanese kicked off the battle for Shuri with an offensive against the American forces. This proved to be a mistake, however, when many Japanese artillery were destroyed and many Japanese soldiers were killed. In spite of this attack, on May 11th, as bad weather began to set in on Okinawa, General Simon Bolivar Buckner, Jr. ordered an attack on the Shuri line. The targets were still fortified hills, including Chocolate Drop Hill, Conical Hill, and Sugar Loaf Hill, along with the huge city of Naha and the coastal plains of Yanambaru. Buckner's hopes in capturing these and other nearby points was to surround Shuri, giving the 10th Army an advantage when it came time to attack Shuri itself. However, as their attacks progressed, it suddenly became apparent that the Japanese were retreating. On May 29th, the 1st Battalion, 5th Marines of the 1st Marine Division easily advanced on the Shuri Hill and captured Shuri Castle. Aided by the monsoon storms, the Japanese 32nd Army conducted a skillful retreat that moved about 30,000 personnel to the final line of defense on the Kion Peninsula. However, in their retreat, the Japanese lost huge amounts of their equipment and arms, putting them at an even greater disadvantage. On top of that, there were now only 2 Japanese defensive positions left on Okinawa, the Kion Peninsula and the Oroku Peninsula. That number soon changed, however, because on June 4th, the 6th Marine Division and the 4th Marine Regiment, followed by the 29th Division, launched an amphibious assault on the Oroku Peninsula. The 22nd Marine Regiment joined the fight a few days later from the land side of the peninsula, and on June 12th, around 200 Japanese surrendered to the American forces. Now, only the Kion defenses remained. After fighting past more hills and ridges, such as Kanishi Ridge, which turned out to be one of the most lethal Japanese defense positions left on the island, the 10th Army made their way into the Kion Peninsula. Then, on June 21st, 1945, the island of Okinawa was officially declared secure by Major General Roy Geiger, who had filled in command of the operation after General Buckner was killed by Japanese artillery on June 18th. What little remained of the Japanese force either committed suicide or were captured or killed by the 10th Army over the next few days. On June 22nd, General Ushijima committed ritual suicide, along with General Isamu Cho. They left Colonel Hiromichi Yahara with an order to remain alive so as to preserve their history of the Battle of Okinawa.